through this without looking at John.
Don't look at John, that would be the kiss of death.
I know. Just got a few things to say about our mother. So it's hard to summarize the life of someone who lived 95 years on this earth and raised 11 children. Being the youngest, they probably all say that I had it the easiest, and I suppose I did. I'm sure I got more one-on-one time with her, even though they had more years with her. Everyone cherished any time they got to be alone with her, like to go to town, which really just meant to go to Gainesville. I certainly remember going to the soda counter at Cress or Watts Pharmacy for an orange sherbet or a root beer float. I remember going to the Safeway grocery shopping with her and riding in the bottom of the grocery cart. Someone would ask her if I was the youngest, and she would say, "I sure hope so." The treat Stevie remembers is stopping at the Curtis restaurant at the Kirkwood Hotel near where the Chili's is now for a piece of pecan pie. They tell me it was such a treat when she would come home from shopping and everyone would get their allotment of 10 M&Ms or a Baby Ruth that she cut into even slices. Of course, by the time I came around, I got the whole candy bar. The older kids have fond memories of driving into the countryside to pick berries or plums, or coming home from school to a freshly baked treat. By the time John and Paul and I were coming home, we got Captain Crunch or barbecue sauce spreads, which I thought was just as good as anything. Margie has a particularly good memory of when building Easter nests any time of the year was in fashion. When she was probably about 5 or 6, she built a great little nest, and Michael, being the mean older brother, ruined it. Margie went crying to Mama, who told her to just go build another one where Michael couldn't find it. So she did. Then a few hours later, Mama asked Margie if she checked her nest, and when Margie checked it, there were 3 beautiful warm blue eggs in it. Of course, we know she was very hardworking. She fed us with a lot of wonderful fruits and vegetables from her garden. Back then, our vegetable garden was below the hill, and Stevie and John remember walking behind her after the end of a hard day's work, helping push her up the hill towards the house. She also sewed shoes for the Linda Joe Shoe Company, as did many of her sisters and other ladies in the local community. Although not the highest paying of jobs, it allowed mothers to pick up piecework in the morning and watch children and feed husbands on the farm while earning a paycheck. Sometimes one of the kids would get to ride with her to pick up the tubs of shoe supplies at 6 in the morning. She also enlisted the help of Daddy and a lot of her kids to help with the shoe sewing, probably breaking a few child labor laws in the process. A fond memory of Ellen's is when she had 2 small boys and lots of dirty cloth diapers. Mama surprised her one day by buying Ellen her first clothes dryer. Keeping your girlish figure is tough for a mother of 11. She joined a group called TOPS, which stood for Take Off Pound Sensibly. She and her sister Lou would go to the weekly weigh-ins, but sometimes not stay for the whole meeting. Instead, they would go to the Curtis restaurant for a meal out. Of course, dealing with so many children can take its toll on your mental health. Sometimes she would get in her car and lock the doors just to get a little quiet time without all the ruckus going on in the house. John remembers knocking on the car window wanting to join her. He didn't think it was fair because he wanted to get away from the mean older brothers too. Later, she would just drive down the lane and park there to listen to the Texas Rangers game. I also remember her talking in German, as I'm sure so do a lot of my cousins, quite often to her mother so that we couldn't understand the gossip she was sharing. She loved to twist words around and make them silly, a trait which she got from her father and which I've inherited. Some of the ones I remember were saying Candlestein for clandestine. Don't ask me why we would ever be using the word clandestine. Maroon for moron, and I'm not sure which one of the kids she was calling maroon. Pneumonia for pneumonia. She would say for garden seed instead of for goodness sake. Or some of her silly sayings like, we always eat our malto meal.
And oh, how good it makes us feel.
She was certainly tough. One time she spilled incredibly hot coffee on herself, but instead of going to the ER, she just continued to finish sewing her shoes for the day. Turned out she had 3rd-degree burns. Another time she developed an infected nail bed on her shoe sewing thumb and kept going with a metal cage on her thumb for months. She was also our shield from Daddy and would try her best to prevent Daddy from finding out something horrible that one of the boys might have done, like breaking a window, or kicking a hole in a door, or setting the yard on fire. It didn't always work, but at least it bought us a little time. She also broadened her horizons in her TV watching, which was on from 8 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, every day of her life, probably. She still liked watching reruns on the Game Show Network, but binged all of Breaking Bad and Orange is the New Black. This was quite a change from her earlier favorites of the Waltons and Little House on the Prairie. Darren spent a lot of time with Mama in her later years. She taught him to crochet and make cinnamon rolls. He also watched a lot of Jeopardy with her. He recalls that just 2 weeks before she died, she got an answer right that none of the Tournament of Champion contestants answered correctly. Recently, he told her he bought a new suit for Ben's wedding. Darren isn't a big suit guy, and so she asked him how many wearings he'd get out of it, and he said probably just one. She said maybe 2 at my funeral, and she was right. Never losing her sense of humor, when Darren told her once that he really looked forward to their visit, she said, "You must be hard up." Many, many hours were passed playing dominoes or cards, games like Hickey, Shoot the Moon, 42, Hearts, Gin Rummy, Uno, Quiddler, and especially Spades. Mother was a risk taker in spades, and even into her 90s would bid no-lo with the Queen of Spades in her hand. She was successful more often than not. John bought her an iPad probably about 7 years ago, and she was actually on her second one. She mostly played solitaire, but he also set her up on Facebook. She actually took to calling the iPad her Facebook. And I can still hear her saying, "Minnie, hand me my Facebook." And always willing to learn something new. Just 3 weeks ago, she asked Darren, "What does this mean? EMOJI?" We take comfort in knowing that she's reunited with Daddy Robert and Jerry, as well as Anna, Mary, Lou, Niecy, Clem, and Joe. Hopefully they've got their Sunday night 42 game started up again. Growing up, we often think to ourselves, please don't let me turn into my mother, but I know now that I would be so lucky if that was the case for me. And one last thing. I just want to thank my sister Ellen for taking such good care of her for the last several years. Because otherwise Michael might have had to do it.